Let's try it again. If you got notes you're going to be taking tonight, and you ready to take notes, you ready to lean in, can you give me a big loud, shaboya? That was pretty good. Okay. Right at the top of your paper, this word, manipulation. Ooh, man. Manipulation. Manipulation. Got to be honest with you guys. About a month ago, this topic came up in conversation. And for whatever reason, God highlighted this. And really, I felt like he was saying, you need to talk about this to students. Why? Because I think many of us experience manipulation in one way or another. Whether it's us manipulating people or people manipulating us. Let's be real honest real quick. All of us have manipulated others before, and we have been manipulated by people before. So tonight, my goal is to help you understand what this word means, how it plays out in your life, but also the most important thing tonight. My goal is for you to understand the power of your no. The power of your no. Now, okay, let's define this word. What the heck does the word manipulate mean? I got to hear a few answers from different squads as we were going through. The word manipulate, I'll put up this definition here. The word manipulate is defined as to be able to control or influence a person or situation in a clever and unfair way. Okay, so to control or influence a person or situation cleverly or unfairly. Hear me, the goal of manipulation is to control a person or influence a situation. The reason why it's clever is because you typically don't know that it's happening to you. And maybe you may not even realize that you're the one doing it. And the reason why it's unfair is because manipulation typically convinces you of something that usually hurts you, whether now or later on. Okay, so manipulation is control. It's clever because you typically don't know what's happening. And it's also unfair because it convinces you to do something that hurts you now or later. Make sense? Okay. Can I tell you something about my mom? Yeah? That was pretty are you guys awake and alive? Ready? Okay, my mom has a fear of something. You want to take a guess what my mom has a fear of? Why is that always a thing? Literally this morning, Kelly was freaked out about a spider outside in our basement. And then, no joke, So we got our cat neutered because he was yelling all the time, and he's crazy. But there was a spider downstairs, and I came down, and she's like, Tony, there's a spider. You got to kill it. And then I looked to where she said it was, and it wasn't there. And she's like, oh, it's not there. And then she goes up closer, and then she finds it. No joke, though. This is welcome to the Pearson household. The drama that goes on at the Pearson house. Okay, anyways. None of you got it right, by the way. You want to guess again what my mom's biggest fear was? I don't know if it's biggest fear. Okay. Puppets. No joke. Puppets and dolls. No joke, though. No joke. Because it's not a real person. Someone is using the person to talk, and it looks like a real person. Freaked her out. I don't know. I think it was a movie she saw when she was a kid. Scarred her for life. She hates the Muppets. She ain't never going to see them. If the Muppets had a horror movie back then, that maybe was the reason why she's freaked out by it. So she's not watching tonight, so I get to do this. I found this on Amazon. Yeah. You guys ever seen some of these little puppets? You guys ever seen these little things? Raise your hand if you've seen one of these things. Hey, if you've been to El Salvador, you may have dressed up something like this as the clown in one of our kids' programs. So, hey, it's cool. Okay. Here's the deal about manipulation. Listen up, please. You heard me say it. Manipulation is what? Control. Manipulation is what? Manipulation is control. So think about it this way. Manipulation is like me right here, pulling these strings to get this guy to do. I actually practiced this a little bit. I got a dance for him to do. Hey, right foot, left stop. Burr. Left foot, left stop. Burr. Cha-cha, real smooth. Turn it out. Yeah, okay. If you were only in my mind one of these times, it's like thinking through what I'm filtering through my mind, okay. But if manipulation is what? Control. Think about manipulation as controlling your life by pulling your strings. Does that make sense? Manipulation is when someone pulls the string of our lives. Now, maybe if you were to think for a second, think of the times that you were pressured to do things. Pressure to do things you didn't want to cross barriers or lines you didn't want to. Think about how that friend has deceived you into thinking one way and you realize it wasn't really good after all. Or think about the influence that the people have around you. I want you to ask yourself, have you ever felt like someone was trying to control you with guilt? Listen up, please. With guilt, lies, or pressure. Guilt, make you feel guilty if you don't do something. They lie to you or use a half-truth, or they pressure you to do something maybe you didn't want to do. Okay, in order for us to understand manipulation, I first want to give us some biblical examples. How has this played out in the Bible? But then also personal examples after that. How does this play out in our lives? So, let's put up this first one. We're going to look at 3 biblical examples of manipulation. I don't have time to read these stories, but I have the passages up here. You can take time later at home tonight to read these stories because we can learn a lot about ourselves and what we get into from these stories. The first is Eve and the serpent. Eve and the serpent. You know that there are people who believe that the serpent was a dragon. You guys ever heard that before? No, thanks. Are you guys awake? I'm just like, I think I'm speaking to some dead people. Does anyone know what happened to Eve and the serpent? Adam and Eve, but what happened? What did the serpent do? The serpent convinced Eve to eat from the tree, the fruit in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What was Satan's tactic at manipulating Eve? What did the serpent say to Eve? Yeah. He lied. He said, didn't God say that you shouldn't be eaten from any of these trees? Didn't God say? And it's an interesting tactic that the enemy likes to use on us. Didn't God say, or did God really say that this is bad for you? Because it looks pretty good to you. And that's exactly when it says after that, it says Eve was convinced and she saw the fruit and it appeared to be beautiful, pleasing to him, and it was good for eating. So why not just consume? So the serpent, this story shows how manipulation often involves deception, being deceived of something, and half-truths. But then also let's look at Samson and Delilah. You guys remember me talking about this, 2 months ago? Actually, I heard in your guys' group you were talking about this. Samson and Delilah. What happened in this story? You guys know? You guys remember? Yeah, Cruz, what happened? Delilah tricked Samson into, which was his hair, cutting off his hair. Hey, next time you go to Great Clips, think about who's cutting your hair, you know what I'm saying? Ask if she's Delilah. If her name's Delilah, you got to be gone from there. You know what I'm saying? But think about this for a second. Delilah repeatedly manipulates Samson, and think about it, in the name of relationship. This girl was attractive to him, right? Well, actually, he was attracted to people that were bad for him. That's a different story. But she used emotional pressure and persistence to get him to reveal the secret of his strength. This shows how manipulation often preys on relationships and emotions. Let's look at Jacob and Esau. Some brotherly love. What happens in the story of Jacob and Esau? Anyone know? Jacob and Esau, what happens? Jacob and Esau are brothers. Jacob, the younger brother, with the help of his mom, manipulates his older brother, Esau, and his dad into giving up Esau's birthright. Now, The birthright is essentially God's blessing to the firstborn son. So the blessing means that also after the dad dies, that firstborn son would receive power and resources. And Jacob deceived his, with the help of his mom, again, deceived his brother and his dad into doing so. The story shows, and you can read it later, this story shows how manipulation also can be driven by selfish desire. Now, what does that mean? I would say selfish desire is all about my gain and your loss. Selfish desire, my gain, as long as it's good for me, I don't care how it goes for you. My gain, your loss. Bless you. Hallelujah. But it also shows, if you look at the story, you're going to have to take time to read it because it's so powerful to see that dishonest choices now create for bigger issues later. Dishonest choices you make today can cause for bigger issues later. Jacob is known as a deceiver, and he actually ends up getting deceived later on. You'll have to read it. But look at these three stories, for example. Look at how manipulation and being manipulated by someone causes significant chaos. Adam and Eve are convinced by the serpent. What happens? All of a sudden, sin enters into our reality, and chaos happens. Samson and Delilah. Delilah manipulated Samson. Not soon after that, after his hair is cut at great clips, he dies. And then Jacob and Esau. You have to read it later. But it's interesting how manipulation can cause chaos in our lives. But if we don't know that it's happening to us, or if we don't realize that we're doing it to people, how is God going to be able to set us free from it? Some of you tonight are being manipulated by people and you don't realize it because you're so close with these people, because it's been happening for so long. At the same time, there are people in the room, all of us have done it, where you're manipulating someone else and you're pulling the strings of someone else's life. And I believe God tonight is going to set many free from the control that we've given other people. So, let's look at it. Let's look at some personal examples of manipulation that typically play out in our lives. Does that sound good? We're going to look at three main types of relationships that manipulation typically takes place in. Sound good? Can you say, oh, Kurt? Let's look at them. The first is friendships. You can write this down. First is friendships. The second is dating relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, holla. Third is family relationships. Okay? The three, boys have cooties. Come on, Grace. Friendships, dating relationships, family relationships. Three primary places where this happens. I'm going to give examples for each. It's not on the screen, but I think all of these, and disclaimer, there's three things I'm going to include for each of these. They're not mutually exclusive. They can be played out in a different scenario, but let's talk about friends. You guys got a friend next to you? If you got a friend next to you, nudge them. Nudge them real quick, say, listen up. Turn to the person you ignore and say, hey, you listen up. Okay. Are you ready for the first example? Oh, guys, you got to be ready for this. We're about to get real. You guys ready to get real? Listen up. First example of manipulation in friendships can be guilt tripping. Guilt tripping says, if you were really my friend, you let me copy your homework. Hey, yo. Guilt tripping says, if you were really my friend, you let me do this. Or we can do this together. Guilt tripping also says, man, I can't believe you're hanging out with them instead of me. Guilt tripping. How about number 2, peer pressure? Peer pressure is one of the biggest things you deal with on a consistent basis from 6th to 12th grade and beyond. Peer pressure is one of the biggest forms of manipulation that you experience consistently. Peer pressure, an example of it is, come on, everyone else is doing it. Don't be lame. Don't be the only one left out. Come on. See, and then manipulation causes you to make stupid decisions. Why? Because people don't like to sin alone. Here's my question to you. How's your influence on people? There's a quote that says leadership is influence. Like leadership at its core is influence. Your ability to influence other people. Now, did you know that there are good leaders and bad leaders? Like you're a good leader if you get people to do good things along with you. But you're a bad leader if you get people to do bad things with you. What kind of influence do you have around the people around you? Are you getting them to make the same mistakes you are because you don't want to do it alone? Because you're so insecure of yourself and your decisions that you have to draw other people down with you? How's your influence? How are you using it? Number 3, silent treatment. Ooh, man, you guys ever got the silent treatment before? The silent treatment is when a friend stops talking to you because you didn't do what they wanted, making you feel guilty, so you'll give in next time. You ever experienced any of those? Now, let's look at dating relationships. And now, some of you are currently in a relationship. Some of you are thinking about a relationship. Wherever you're at, I think we can all learn from these. One, we're going to look at 3 again. The first, common form of manipulation in dating relationships is, oh, watch this. It's the if you love me statements. Man. This one says, if you really loved me, you send me that picture. If you really love me, you'd cross that line with me. Come on, we've been dating for so long. Come on, we love each other. And then manipulation uses love as leverage. If you really loved me, you'd do this for me. And that's maybe where you're at. Maybe the lie of love in your life, with the relationship you're in, is causing you or the other person to compromise your values in the name of love. How about playing the victim? Number 2. Playing the victim says, I just don't know what I'd do without you. I can't live without you. Or maybe even, I'm going to off myself if you break up with me. Manipulating someone to stay in an unhealthy relationship out of guilt. Let me be honest for a second. If you're in that type of relationship, that is not healthy. That is not love. That is not good. Playing the victim. How about jealousy and control? See, jealousy and control says, man, why are you talking to them? Why'd you just like their post? Or it says, I don't want you hanging out with them. Now, let me clarify something. Good friends are there, should be in your life to call you out if you're hanging out with people that are causing you to do stupid things, right? A good friend is one to say, hey, you're one way with me, a good person with me, but then when you're with this group of people, all of a sudden you change very quickly. That's a good friend. Now, if you're in a relationship with someone, let's say your girlfriend says, you can't talk to any other girl in the school ever. That girl's got insecurity issues. For them to tell you, you can't talk to anybody else, see, that sounds to me like jealousy and control. Let's talk about family relationships. Number 3. Family relationships. Keys and cover this time. First one, comparisons. Comparisons. And maybe this has happened to you, where you've had someone say, why can't you be more like your brother or sister? Or, you'll never be successful if you don't be who I want you to be. Then using shame to control you and comparison to control you. Maybe for you, you've had a parent, number 2, that's withheld affection. Withholding affection. That's when a family member only shows you love when you meet their expectations. That's when a parent says, oh, I'll be proud of you, but only when you get good grades. I'll be proud of you, but only when you're finally on that team. Number 3, blame shifting. Blame shifting is when a parent or sibling makes their mistake your fault. That's when someone will say, well, if you hadn't distracted me, if you hadn't annoyed me, then I wouldn't have messed up. Or, and maybe this is for some of you, you've been told this lie. Maybe you've been told by a parent that their divorce is because of you. I'm going to stop that lie right now and tell you that's not your problem, that's their problem. That's their problems they're putting on you. You're not the reason for their divorce. All of these are examples maybe we've seen happen and play out in our lives. Maybe last week, maybe last night, last month. I don't know what it is. Or maybe you've done some of these things to other people. My challenge for you tonight is that you would be reminded of something. And that something is this: that God has empowered you with one huge, significant word to speak over some of this. You know what that word is? No. God's empowered you with the word no, the ability to say no to unhealthy manipulation and to control. Recognize with me here that sometimes, or maybe most of the time, your no can be more powerful than your yes. That it's easy to say yes to something into our lives, harder to say no at times. But my goal is when you recognize the manipulation that's been taking place, the control you're giving someone else, is that you would say, you know what? No longer am I going to be someone else's puppet. No longer am I going to let someone just control my actions because of their influence on me. No longer am I going to let my boyfriend tell me what I get to do with my body. No longer am I going to get told what to do by my friends and just feel like I'm tossed around from party to party or friend group to friend group. And I'm putting on all these different faces in front of all these different people. That's got to be so tiring. I realized after high school, I wish I would have actually understood this when I was in middle school, when I was in high school, is that, man, the best person to be is real and not fake. You guys in your generation can recognize quicker than anybody when someone's fake. But you know what's so sad? Is that we're surrounded by fake friends all the time. And we do nothing about it. We just play into it. Like, oh yeah, this person's cool. He's hooked up with this many girls. That's cool? Do you think that's love? Do you think that's good? Do you think that's healthy? How do you think that kid's gonna be 10 years from now when he's slept around with 20 girls and he's trying to find someone as a partner, not to just sleep around with, but actually find someone who God's designed for him? But it's just weed, man. Like, it's okay. Like, all these other guys are doing it. I don't really know a lot of old people who've lived their lives smoking weed all the time and live a good life. Yeah, they live a very anxious life, very depressed life. Symptoms of weed. But anyways. Recognize that your no is powerful. I do want to clarify something here. For those who are under authority of your parents, don't say that your parents are manipulating you when they ask you to clean your room, okay? I'm just putting it out there. When your parents ask you to do something, as long as it doesn't go against the Bible, you need to do it. You need to honor your parents. You know what the Bible says about that? Do you want to live, it literally says, do you want to live a long life on earth? Obey your parents. Really interesting. Do you know what happens when we accept the power of our no? When we actually accept the power of the word no when we're being manipulated by people. When that peer pressure is so strong and we want to give in, we just want to be like everyone else. Do you know what happens when we recognize the power of our no. Hey, Zach, can I have you come up real quick? Can you hold this up real quick? You guys remember good old, we didn't name him. You can bring it down a little bit. You know what happens when you start to recognize the power of your no? Is you actually start to break chains off of your life that God never designed to be in your life. And all of a sudden you say, you know what, boyfriend? You don't have, oh no, man. Sometimes it's hard to say no to your boyfriend because you've been with him for 3 years. You know what I'm saying? He's not good for you. I got to recover from that. Do you know what happens when you accept the power of your no? Is, you know what, no longer does this person get to control my emotions. No longer does this person get to control my values. No longer does this person get to control who I hang out with. Thank you, Zach. And all of a sudden, we realize we don't have to be controlled by the people that we interact with. What if God never designed you to be someone else's puppet? What if? Or maybe for you, you're a very influential person. You're one of the most popular kids at school. But you know what? Maybe you're realizing tonight, you've been controlling a whole lot of people to do a whole lot of stupid things. What if God's saying, you know what? Take your hand off of the controls for a second. I got a better plan in store. What if? What if? What if? When you realize that you don't have to be controlled by others, think about it. You can rest in the fact that your security is in who God says you are, not in what man says you are. You quite literally rest in the fact that God says you're his son and you're his daughter. When you're his child, you have direct access to him. What better thing could you have access to? Think about the things that people have said to you that you've done to other people. Think about the manipulation that has happened to you that you've done to other people. Here's my question to close. What strings of control have you given to the people around you? Think about it for a second. What strings of control have you given to the people around you to where you become someone else's puppet? I'm going to have the leaders that know that this is for you. I'm going to have you come up at this time. In a second, we're going to have a chance to actually respond and acknowledge the manipulation that's been happening around us. So leaders, if you want to help me with this, grab a scissors and grab about like 5 to 10 pieces of string. What strings of control have you given the people around you? Now, I also didn't say this. One individual that we give a lot of control to is also the enemy. Think about this for a second. When you read patterns of how the enemy likes to work in people's lives, the enemy doesn't have a lot of weapons to use against you. In fact, the only weapons that Satan, look here people, the only weapons that Satan can use against you are the ones you give to him. For example, you're just super upset at what your friend did to you or something that happened. You're frustrated. You know what you can do with that anger? It can cause you to be super bitter and have a lot of unforgiveness. So what do you do with that? That's a tool. And you say, here you go, enemy. Use that as you will against me. Or maybe that issue of lust, that issue of porn, you keep going back to it, and it just keeps lingering and lingering. And then you know what you do with it? You take it and you say, here you go, enemy. I'll deal with it later. See, the weapons that the enemy uses against us are the ones we give to him. So maybe we need to cut off control of the weapons we're giving the enemy to use against us. I don't know what it is for you, but I want you to know this. Who you give control to is the one who empowers your life. Who you give control to, who Whoever that is the one who empowers your life. So when you allow others to empower your life, you'll become someone else's puppet. But when you try to empower your own life, you'll always fall short. But when you allow God to empower your life, He's the only one that can give you more than you could ask or imagine. He's the only one. That's why Paul prays this prayer in Ephesians 3:16. That's my prayer over you tonight, is this verse. Paul says, I pray that from God's glorious, unlimited resources, He empowers you with inner strength through His Spirit. Here's the good news. God has empowered you to take ownership of your decisions and to use the power of your no. You know what? No, I'm not going back to that relationship. I'm not going back to the person. I'm not going back to that thing that just keeps tripping me up. Yeah, I may still keep messing up, but God, I don't want to keep giving the enemy open doors in my life to just do whatever he wants. What does it look like for you? Here's what we're going to do in a minute. Our leaders all have a pair of scissors, and they also have some string. And in a second, Kelly is going to sing a song called Who You Say I Am. And it says, who the Son sets free is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. And you're going to have a chance to respond to this message when you're ready by coming up to one of these leaders. They're going to put out a piece of string, and it's your job to take that scissors and cut the control off of your life. Symbolically representing, you know what? They hold no control over me anymore. I'm done with it. I recognize it. Or maybe you recognize, God, I'm sorry. I'm done controlling other people. I'm done giving the enemy a seat at my table. I'm done with it. There are three things that specifically that I didn't mention that I wanted to pray specifically over that I felt God say. So I want to list these three. This may be you. Maybe God's already spoken to you, and that's great. But the first is one area to cut control over, and these three specifically are ways the enemy can manipulate you and control you. Number one is you feel complete when you're with a certain person. It could be a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or a friend. And the reality is your identity is coming from being with that person. But here's the reality. That's not good. Why? Because that person is not capable and was never designed to complete you. You can only find identity and completion in a true relationship with Jesus. Not a fake one. My life, think about this. My life was not complete when I married Kelly. It was complete when I said yes to Jesus. Kelly is an added gift to my life, but she does not complete me. Number two, unforgiveness. An area you need to you need to cut off. Maybe unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is controlling your actions. That person has been pulling on the strings of your life and are in control because you haven't forgiven them. I've heard it said this way, that unforgiveness is like setting yourself on fire and expecting the other person to die from it. And then maybe this for you is causing avoidance of this person, hatred, intense anger, mood swings. It's because you haven't forgiven them. Forgiveness doesn't mean that what they did is okay. Forgiveness is simply saying, you know what, I'm not going to be controlled by what you did any longer. Number three, it's a little different, but attention. You desire to be seen by others, so you may fabricate stories in your life or dramatize what actually happened in order to get a response from people. Hear me. The only person's attention you should care about is your Heavenly Father. And guess what? He already sees you. Close your eyes with me for a second. Lord, I pray you would help us all see the areas that we've given control to other people. Or maybe the areas we've been controlling other people's lives by. God, help us to sever that control tonight. To cut those strings, that control, that manipulation out of our lives tonight. I pray that this symbolic representation would truly impact not just this moment, but their hearts and lives moving out of here. Would they believe for themselves, they are children of God. They are your son, they are your daughter in whom you're well pleased in. In Jesus' name, look here real quick. We're going to have the lights dim down, and Kelly's going to start singing. Can I have everybody stand to your feet? But look here. Stay looking here. Stay looking here. I understand that this may take a little bit of time for you to maybe sing and get your heart right before you make this decision. Here's what you can do. You can ask to pull a friend in with you. Hey, I need help with this because this is going to be hard for me to cut this thing off tonight. Or maybe, hear me this, maybe there are multiple things that are coming to mind. You're like, okay, I got this person is controlling my body, this person should control my personality, this person control my values. Maybe there are multiple things. Tell the leader, hey, if you got multiple, put 3 pieces of string out there because I need to cut every single one of them. I don't know what it is for you, but whenever you need to respond, go to a leader. Ready? Let's go.
Who the sun sets free, oh, is free.